Africans are usually criticized for their slow pace of life, though it seems their approach to life is much healthier than our fast paced, overworked lifestyle in the West. How can we slow down in this busy environment?
Well, what I would say is that I think Africans have a better idea of what life should be. They have, for thousands of years, lived in harmony with the earth cycles, with plants, with animals, and with time. And they've done so very successfully because they are still here. Thousands of civilizations have come and gone, and they're still there. So there must be some credence to how they have approached it. Now, I recently traveled there and I had people complaining, oh, everything take longer to do, and the people this and the people that. And I said, listen, people are slowly integrating the Western approach. So we cannot go to their country and expect to have a Western style experience. It's simply not going to be so. But I am more tempted to work with what I see has lasted for, I would say, hundreds of thousands of years than to go with something that is merely 70 to 90 years old, which is what Western society represents at this time. What we've been doing was developed during the industrial age and has now come over into the technological age. And based on what I'm observing in Europe, in North America, right here across the Caribbean, it does not seem sustainable. I feel as if societies, especially the younger people, are imploding on themselves because they're so pressurized. I am now seeing instances of people who live their life from a to do list. I see people who are living their life from spreadsheets. And we understand why we've had to use those tools to function in such a crammed sort of expectation that Western society has created. But it's not sustainable. The human psyche, the human body is built to work with and off, on and off. And the circadian rhythm is the greatest indicator of the on and the off. During the daylight hours, you should be on. Nighttime, you should be off. And what is happening is that people, because their devices are beside them, they are constantly on. As soon as they wake up in the morning, they are switched on. They are looking at social media. They're looking at all sorts of things. So we need to rethink time. You know, Africans are on, I want to call it universal time. Recently, we saw Lauryn Hill getting bashed because she has poor work ethic and so on, but I think she's on universal time. She stepped out of the matrix and she says, listen, when I feel to is when I will do it. When I want to is when I will do it. When spirit tells me it's the right time is when I will do it. If we would function off of that, we would be better off. However, it's not easy. And I understand we all have 9 to 5 jobs. There's a reason why it's a 9 to 5. There is a particular parameter of time in which we need to produce. And so we've had to negate our feelings, our moods, and everything and fit ourselves into this 9 to 5. It's useful, but the pandemic showed us that we don't have to work in the 9 to 5. We can work on a staggered time, we can work remotely. And I think people are proving that they can work just as effectively remotely, where they're not under the clock, they're not under anyone's thumb, not under anyone's inspection, and they are simply delivering the deliverables. So, my recommendations as to how we can adapt ourselves a little better to this thing called time, because time is an illusion, you know. Time is a man-made construct. They say there is no time. It's a little difficult for me to tell people there is no time because we have been brought up to work with time. So what I would recommend for persons is that if you do work and you do work a 9 to 5, do what society requires of you in the 9 to 5. But once you step out of the 9 to 5, try as best as possible to operate on natural time. In other words, what you feel to do, when you feel to do it, and so on. Another thing that I'm observing is that people are pushing themselves to do the 9 to 5 and a side hustle and another job and something else and something else. That's not sustainable. The brain has massive capacity. So does the body. But when you tax both the brain and the body for an extended time, it's not sustainable. So I know we want to have a lot of money. I know we want material things, but reconsider that. Think about the things that you can do without. Is a designer bag critical? Is a high-end luxury car critical? What's more important, your health and well-being, or the luxury car and the designer bags? Yeah? Step back a little and just be gentle with yourself. Yeah? Maybe not make that to-do list have 10 things. Maybe make it have 3 things. And remember, there is no punishment for not achieving your to-do list. The only punishment that would be inflicted is yours. Right? We have put just too much pressure on us. We are goal-oriented. And while being goal-oriented is not a bad thing, we need to be able to determine when we've crossed the line between what is useful goal orientation and what is going to be detrimental. So I think people need to just step back a little, not push themselves so much, because to what end? When you die prematurely, if you die of illness, what would have been the gains? You might leave a few material things for your family members. It's probably going to cause a fight between them. As we know in Jamaica, we call that, dead left, and dead left has never had any good outcomes. It always has negative outcomes. So we should live our lives not selfishly, but for ourselves. We should be gentle with ourselves. We should not beat up on ourselves. And we certainly should not be slaves to time from the Western perspective. You should carve out time to lie down and look up into the sky. People will laugh at something like that, but it is absolutely essential that we switch off and just leave ourselves some downtime. Time to sit beside a river and listen to the sound of the water. Even time to sit beside an artificial waterfall is still more soothing than being on your hustle or on your side hustle, right? So let us all try to see how we can move more towards this universal time, this no time scenario where we're not just on this schedule. I've seen it most demonstrated with the new children and the parents that have scheduled every moment of their time with an activity. You're doing it to the children and you're doing it to yourself. So you now have 2 generations of people who are on the hamster wheel. They don't have any time to think. They don't have any time to develop their own personality or their own persona. They don't have any time to even think introspectively, who am I? What am I doing here? What's my purpose? Because we are slaves to a schedule. That's also something that I would like to appeal to parents to move away from scheduling every single moment of your child's life. So you have a schedule that doesn't have 1 minute free, and your child has a schedule that has not 1 minute free. That's not natural, and it's definitely something that we should be looking at how we can move away from. Yes, and I agree that the timetabling puts us on give us some degree of discipline and scheduling, but what is it preparing us for? It is preparing us to go into the same system that we're all complaining about. It's part of timetabling and scheduling in that way is part of the industrial um, revolution, and how they needed to have us to fill their industries. And that required us to be prepared. But right now, we're moving into a new age where people are on their own time, people can produce, people can do different things to earn. So I think the new approach where people produce on their own time is going to become more and more relevant. And so this scheduling and this discipline, because guess what? People who are doing their own um, jobs, their own business, they have a certain level of discipline that keeps them pushing towards their goal. So, we're going to have to use different things to get us towards the outcomes that we want, and start to move away from those, I call them outdated or outmoded modalities for controlling society.